think the more work that you do in yourself and your personal development journey, which is why I often say that this is our sacred duty to ourselves. It's really one of those, we got to stand up and be really strong in our, in our stead. And so, the more that you will be going down the path and down the journey and reading the books and, getting into the courses, the classes, or whatever else you may do, you learn the processes, you learn the patterns about yourself, which is really kind of cool.
Welcome to Vulnerability Muscle, the inspiring podcast challenging norms and helping you redefine vulnerability as a strength. I'm your host, Reggie D. Each episode of Vulnerability Muscle dives into a variety of topics such as mental health, social issues, and mindset shifts. We explore the power of vulnerability and fostering meaningful connections, healing, building resilience, and promoting personal growth. Sometimes these conversations are uncomfortable, but good workouts often are. So join us and flex that vulnerability muscle. Welcome to this episode of Vulnerability Muscle. I'm your host, Reggie D. Vulnerability Muscle, where we redefine vulnerability as a strength. And I'm joined here today by Dame Clarissa Burt. Clarissa is an internationally acclaimed, award-winning media personality, producer, director, author, speaker, and former supermodel with over 35 years of experience in both American and international entertainment industries. She is the founder and CEO of In the Limelight Media, a multi-platform brand that includes a video series, podcast, and digital magazine aimed at empowering and inspiring audiences worldwide. Clarissa is also the author of the book, The Self-Esteem Regime, an action plan for becoming the confident person you were meant to be. It's available on all platforms, so go check that out. Her extraordinary contributions have earned her some of the world's most prestigious honors. And this is where my whole brain was just like, I am so excited to have this conversation, including being knighted by the Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen, receiving the Araldo Award from Prince Albert II of Monaco as a global ambassador of the Prince Albert II Foundation, and the International Women's Peace Award in Rome.
Yeah, well, we've been around.
Wow.
I get around,
There is so much more to your story, but I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm so glad to be here. So welcome, Clarissa. How are you?
Oh, you know what, Reggie, I'm just doing too good. All is really well. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a bright, sunshiny day. And I've just been working all day on some really cool things that are, moving forward the whole idea, thought, and process of personal development,
Yeah.
self-improvement,
Yes.
self-esteem, doing the right
Yes.
thing, being the right person, for you and not for somebody else or what you've been taught by, your familial tribe. So just all kinds of really good stuff going on here.
I love some of those words that you just dropped. Being the
Yeah.
right person for you
Yeah.
without those expectations that
Yeah.
come with all the other folks and people in society and all of that. So, I love that.
Love that.
Before we hop into the journey, I have a segment called What Comes to Mind. And so you tell me what the
Oh,
first
I
thing.
like that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Let's play. Woo! I love
Just
that.
a little
Okay.
icebreaker, so don't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
What comes to mind when you hear the word vulnerability?
Oh, uh, no, that's a good one. What comes to mind? I want to kind of make it. I wanted to go to the personal, like when was the last time I felt vulnerable?
Mm.
Probably at noon. Vulnerability is just one of those kind of things that you learn to accept, you play with it, you let it be its own entity, and then you do everything in your capability and possibility to conquer, if you will, because
Mm.
vulnerability is one of those kind of things. It's a really great thing to be vulnerable and learn a lot of things from that space, but it's not kind of one of those spaces you want to be in for too long. Let it do its thing.
Mm.
Let it teach you what the message is there somewhere. Get that message, move on,
Mm.
and find get your strength back, get your sea legs under you again, if you will.
Mm.
Vulnerability is part of the process, and
Mhm.
it's all good, but it's one of those kind of things that it kind of can feel uncomfortable, and it's there to teach you something. So, capture the lesson and move
Mm.
on.
Oof, I love that. I
Yeah.
love thinking of vulnerability as a teacher.
Yep.
and
Oh, yeah.
and it definitely comes with discomfort. So at any moment in this conversation, as we get vulnerable, as we flex that vulnerability muscle, that you feel uncomfortable, I hope that you feel empowered to let me know and to take the
Oh,
space that you need. So
yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, just keep throwing them at me, and we'll see how I
definitely.
do.
Clarissa, what do you do to center yourself when you're feeling stressed or even depressed?
Center.
Yeah.
Um, one of the main things that I do is I know that when I gotta back off because it means I'm pushing too hard. It means I'm expecting too much from myself. It means I put way too. I do this. I think it's an ADHD thing too, where you just put way too much on your plate. I have 900 projects around the house right now started,
Hmm.
and I recognize now that that is for me. It's also a means of escape, and it's a means of evading, right? It's a real evasory kind of, well, that's not the right word, but I evading getting to the point, because there are times when I'll sit down at the computer and I know when it's time to really get down to work and really get down deep, I'll find something else to do that's not so, not
Hmm.
so impeniative, so there you go. That's kind of, I think, the answer to that. So I hope I answered that okay.
No, I like that. I like that. You recognize that in yourself. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I think the more work that you do in yourself and your personal development journey, which is why I often say that this is our sacred duty to ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really one of those things. We got to stand up. We gotta stand up and be really strong in our stead. And so, the more that you will be going down the path and down the journey and reading the books and, getting into the courses, the classes, or whatever else you may do, you will learn you learn the processes, you learn the patterns about yourself, which is really
Yes.
kind of cool. It's really, really
Yes.
cool.
Oh, let
Yeah.
me ask you. So you said you need to take a step back and slow
Yes.
down in those moments. What does that look like for you?
It looks like, maybe getting up, going for a walk, taking a bath, making a call, which we never do.
Mhm.
My generation, that's all we knew. You want to talk to somebody, you picked up a phone, you call them. I'll call my mom. How you do? Just to sort of like, I'll make cookies. I'll stop and I will
I
full on get.
love that.
Oh my God. Look, I don't know if you wait, I'm gonna show you. Think I'm kidding. What? Look over there in the kitchen. I don't know if you see way back there.
Yep. Yep.
There's the mixer.
Yep. The mixer with the cookies. Let's
Damn
go.
right. So yesterday morning, I was in there making cookies at 6 o'clock. I got back from my walk. I was out at 5, back by 6, and by 6:15, I was in there making cookies
Let's
because
go.
it's one of the things that I do that I love. It's another thing that I know for me that's nurturing. So
Mm.
when I take the cookies to mom, or I hand something over the wall to my neighbor, it's one of those kind of nurturing things that, that it fills the soul, right?
Yeah.
Doing something good for you and you're doing something good for someone else, so it's a double whammy, and I love
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes. The kindness that is shared and
Yeah.
kindness helps extend our lives. Like
Yeah.
there is science and research behind that. Your acts of
Yeah.
kindness
Yeah.
extend your life.
And
So,
they all said to me, "Clarissa, I love when you bake for us,
yeah.
but my waistline doesn't love it so much."
Right.
The heck with your waistline. I get it. We all wanna be we gotta stay fit, but every once in a while, it's okay.
Yeah. All right, last one. What is one of your favorite childhood memories?
My grandmother.
Mm.
Down the shore, down the Jersey Shore, every summer, 3 months with my grandmother. Of course, my grandfather would come down on the weekends, and, we never really saw our parents that much because they were, back home working in Philly. And, I adored my grandmother Clarissa. I'm the 5th generation Clarissa.
Mm.
So for the firstborn girl, and every generation got the name. And grandmother Clarissa for me she was just always, she was my best friend since day one. And, she was my confidant. And, I would come home. I was living in Europe for a long time, and I used to come home and tell her I was coming home. So I'd fly all the way back into Newark, or wherever I was coming, all the way back into LaGuardia. My mom was in Jersey, so I'd stay with my mom. And then I'd go get on the train and take the Amtrak down to Philadelphia. And then from there, of course, there was an offshoot to get to Glen Olden, where she lived. But, and I would always just go up, knock on the door and surprise the heck out of her. She thought I was in Paris, but I was, right there at the front door. So she would do a happy dance. Like she would stand there and straight up do and so she would, and I was dancing, and she was dancing, we were dancing, then we were hugging, and then we danced again. It was the sweetest thing on the planet.
Aw.
So grandmom's been missing now. She went to the Angels 14, I think, years ago.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, as
Mm.
life, has it, you're born and then you die.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it is. But she is and will always be just that for me. She was, yeah, the greatest
Yeah.
just the greatest lady. Class act, never had a drink, never said a curse word, didn't put on a pair of pants until the 60s when the women's revolution went. I mean, we first saw my grandmother in a pair of, she had like one of those polyester pantsuits on, and the whole, oh, grandma's in pants. It was the craziest thing. And then she went and got her ears pierced. Oh my God, she was in her late 50s and she went and got her ears pierced. And we thought she had lost her shite. I mean, it was the craziest thing on the world. Grandmom's in a pantsuit and she just got her ears pierced. What the
Oh,
hell?
wow.
What's next? You'd think she went and gotten a license and she started to drive a
She's
car.
driving. She probably got tatted up.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
let's go.
It's the wildest thing, because women then, right, that generation didn't do those things. They weren't taught to do
Wow.
those things.
Yeah.
They were wives and they were mothers and they stayed home, and that was it. So
Wow.
every time for her whole lifetime, if she had to get to the supermarket, my grandfather took her.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I
So it
love
was just,
how excited you got. Like, you
yeah.
answered that
Oh, yeah,
grandmother.
yeah, yeah.
Like childhood grandmother, easy.
That's it.
Boom. And
That's it.
that was so beautiful. And so I
Yes.
know grief is a process that
Yeah.
extends in 14
Yeah.
years or 40 years or however many years it ends up being.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry for that loss of such a
Thanks.
beautiful person, but she
Yes.
has instilled so much greatness in you that I can see.
Yeah, I think she really she was one of my driving forces for sure.
Mm,
Just a class act and a beautiful lady. But she was on the earth with us for at least, she was here for 96 years. I got her for, the whole time that I could,
yeah.
and I spent as much time with her as I could, and it was great. It was just great.
Yeah. I think something that you said about just the number of generations of Clarissas that have been in your family, that
Yeah,
is the ancestry that the lineage of that just it sparks so much curiosity in me
yeah,
because I feel like that is not anything from what
yeah.
I know.
The first Clarissa was Clarissa Whitehead, and she was from Germany. And my grandmother spoke about her grandmother, so Clarissa Whitehead was my great great grandmother.
Okay.
She spoke about her grandmother the way I speak about her.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She adored her grandmother. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so your family originates from Germany. Do you know anything further
We
back?
really are mostly originating from Ireland and England for sure. But
Mhm.
that one person, my great great grandmother was, from Germany.
Gotcha.
Everybody else was from Ireland and England. And I know that to be true because I have, I'm on heritage.com and my DNA or whatever the heck
Mhm.
that's all called. And so I follow that. I love following that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
every week I get a new newsletter coming in about who was my eighth great grandfather, or my ninth great grandmother. And I'm telling you, as far back as we go, we were born in the United States. It's crazy.
Wow.
Like, I have a really hard time. I think it goes back 11 generations to,
Wow.
I don't know how many, but it's crazy because you're kind of waiting for somebody to say, well, who came over on the Mayflower? Like, like it's like they were always here on both sides.
Wow.
So crazy stuff. Yeah, really crazy.
Yeah. How
Well,
did
and we were in Philly, right? So that's kind of the
Mhm.
birthplace of the United States,
True, true,
Philadelphia,
yeah.
right? So, or at least as it's of our of the government, the Constitution, all
Yeah,
those things.
yeah.
Birthplace is probably really Plymouth
It's so
Rock, but
much
you get
risk.
the
Yeah,
idea.
it's so much rich history
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Philly. So much. Oh,
yeah,
I love it there. I'm
yeah,
curious how you go from your grandmother, where it was a surprise to drive herself
yeah.
anywhere, to doing all the things that you have done in your life,
Yeah,
modeling, acting,
yeah,
media, like authorship, like you've done
yeah,
so much in your
yeah,
life.
so
How
great.
does that change over the course of just a few generations?
I think it's just a little girl with a lot of dreams, you know? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, of course, again, we go back, you're gonna go, "Ah, she's a boomer." You know, here we go. I'm a boomer. Sorry, everybody, I'm a boomer. And I remember, we had, of course, there was no computer and internet. You know, it was a big deal. I can remember, I still remember my grandfather saying, "Chris," he's taking my grandmother, "Chris, get off the phone. They're calling long distance." I mean, Chris, because my grandmother would be talking either to me or she'd be talking to my mom. And I'm talking from Philly to Jersey. I'm not talking, God only. We had long distance phone call pricing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Chris, get off the phone. They're calling long distance.
Wow.
You're running up their bill. I swear to God, it's the craziest thing. To remember these things is just nuts to me. But there you go. I mean, that's how times have changed. We didn't have internet. We didn't have computers. We didn't have all the things. Telephone was a big damn deal. Like on the wall, one in the house.
Mm.
The whole thing. So um, I get so carried away with myself. I forget what the original question was. But
Just
I think,
just changing from generations of
yeah,
what was expected to what you were able to do
yeah,
in your life or what
yeah.
are able to do.
Well, I think the really cool thing is that, my mother, was really a very free. She, she graduated high school when she was 18 in Philly, went 12 years to the nuns. So I
Mm.
think my mother, when she got out, was a little stir crazy with the whole
Mm.
thing. Just needed.
Mhm. Yeah.
So mom wound up pregnant with me 2 months later.
Wow.
And that was not a good thing back in 1958. Good girls didn't do that. And my mother's a phenomenal lady. I mean, there were 800 girls in her graduating class, and she was salutarian, which means she was the second in place. She had,
Mhm.
dean's list every year. So my mother is an extremely intelligent person who got caught up with what can happen in life.
Yeah.
And so a good Catholic girl does what? First of all, she became immediately the black sheep of the family. But what
Mm.
does she do? She settles, she gets married, and she brings up her family. And I think mom, that really hit her hard. I think that was really hard for her. So when it came to me, it was like, first of all, she couldn't wait to get us all out of the house. I think that was the real truth. You're 18, get on your way. And
Yeah.
she was right. She's right. But the idea that I had always was, from the part that, I was 5 years old, I was Mary Poppins in the kindergarten play. And, I think the idea that when I got done, finished, singing Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and I got a standing ovation, I was like, damn, I get used to this. You know, I was like, I kind of like them all standing for me and clapping that way. That's pretty cool. I like that. So it was I was one of those kind of really energetic kids. It just, I loved to be the boss, and I loved to stage the plays, and all the things. And I loved to sing, and so it was kind of written on the wall. Now, my parents were, my father also went to 12 years to the priests in
Mm.
Catholic school. So, I had a little bit of a harder time, with the getting out of the house and being free. But once I was, my parents divorced. But once I was, it was like, go, and do what you're going to do.
Mhm. Wow.
So I went from Jersey to New York City. I started modeling, and then that took me to Europe, where I stayed for 30 years.
Okay. Okay. And oh wow. So what was the experience like in Europe? Where were you living?
Milan in the beginning. Oh, Paris in the very beginning. In '83,
Mhm.
I went to '83. Yeah, I went to Paris, and I was there for about a year. But I didn't like Paris very much. It just wasn't my thing. I think I was a little too young, and I was homesick. I was really
Mhm.
homesick. So came home. I was in New York City for about a year and some, and I started a temporary, become a secretary again. And where did they put me? Where did they put me? Did I call you Reginald or Reggie?
Reggie.
Reggie, where did they put me? Temporary secretary, where did they put me? Here's a girl that wants to be a model. They put me at Revlon. Revlon Corporate on
Yeah.
59th Street, all the way at the top floor.
Wow.
So now I'm temp secretarying for Revlon Corporate. And I'm looking around at all the walls, and I'm looking at all these girls, the posters they hang up, right? All these girls that are doing the Revlon campaigns. And I went,
Mm.
oh my God, I really screwed up. I was in
Mm.
Paris. I didn't give it my all. I was scared. I
Mm.
was homesick. I was depressed. I blew my chance. So I temped until I could make enough money to fly back. And it wasn't cheap then. It was, you weren't making a lot of money then.
Yeah.
I worked my butt off and I got that ticket back to Europe. And I didn't go to Paris this time. I went to Milan, and that was in '83.
Mm-hmm.
And and the next thing you know, I mean, everything turned around, and I had the most phenomenal modeling career on the planet. I came home with like 250 covers. I was on every major runway on the planet. I worked with Revlon. I was the face of Orlane Cosmetics for 10 years worldwide.
Wow.
I had my own counter at Bloomingdale's in New York City with my face. I mean, it went from I could never. So the mentality and the self-esteem being so low to say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, who am I? I could never."
Mm-hmm.
And people say, "Oh, you really should be a model." And it was my secret dream. "Oh, you should be a model." "Oh, I could never."
Wow.
You know,
So what was that pivotal moment to make you think that, oh, I can do
I'm
this?
gonna tell you what it was. It was so many people I think it were the people along the way that said, "You really should. You should give it a
Mm-hmm.
try. I think you'd be great. You really could do that." If and I was a kid. I mean, nobody was really like I didn't have a home life where people were helping me or or cheering me on, or it was like, "You're out of the house, see ya." You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't stuff you got, it was you really had to go find yourself first, and then find the strength, and then believe that you could. And then when I remember they used to call it testing, and we go in and there'd be a studio and the photographer and the makeup artist, all they were all starting their careers, so they all needed a model. I needed the makeup needed, we all needed a photographer, we needed the pictures, like it was called a test.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I mean, these pictures when they first started to come out, I go, "Holy," I was like, "God, that's really me." And
Mm.
I really could do this, and I
Mm.
really think I'm good. And then boom, I took those pictures to the modeling agencies in New York City. I got picked up with Wilhelmina, and the rest is history.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that is, I mean, to speak to the community and the people that surrounded you during that time, even when your biological family probably wasn't celebrating the route that you were taking.
That's
You
right.
mentioned your mom being, being considered the black sheep, and there's
Yeah.
so much shame in that. There's so
Yeah.
much shame that comes
Yeah.
with that. And she went down a path that was kind of reclaiming some of the holiness, the sanctity of what she should have been doing, right? And
Right.
then there you go, you are off to the
Yeah.
races. I think
I'm
that's
up.
so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and it's funny too, I'll add one more layer to that. My mother used to always say, "Oh, don't take my picture. Can't take don't ta oh, I come out horrible in pictures." What did I do?
Give me the picture. Put me in front of the camera.
Do you remember I don't know if you remember this, but there was a day back turn of the century that the Italians and the Irish hated each other.
Mhm.
You know, people are coming to the United States, they're emigrating, Ellis Island, the whole 9 yards. And I think they made a movie called The Gangs of New York with, I think DiCaprio was in it. And it,
Mhm.
illustrates perfectly how the Italians and the Irish hated each other. Well, my father was not very kind with his words. Back in the day, you could say anything, about an ethnicity of somebody. You could use any word you wanted, and it just was funny, or it flew, or nobody
Yeah.
called you out on it, or whatever. And my father hated the Italians. Oh, he
Mhm.
couldn't stand the Italians. We were Irish, right? Couldn't stand the Italians, and I'm telling you, every damn word that you could say bad about Italians, he used them, right? So, where did I wind up living for 30 years? Well, damn, and I didn't even do that on purpose. It just got one day I became a model and lived in Italy, and those were the things my parents hated the most.
Wow.
I didn't even realize it, It just
Yeah.
kinda, like, dawned on me one day, and so, yeah,
How
I
did that reshape how you viewed Italians after that
Oh,
experience?
the Ital well, I also made sure that I became an Italian citizen, so I have dual
Mhm.
citizenship.
Mm.
And I mean, the Italians are, they're a huge part of my life and all, have been, and they're a phenomenal, they're just phenomenal. They're great.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of another layer on top of all of that I thought was
Yeah.
kind of funny. I went, damn,
Wow.
my mother could take a picture of my mother, which by the way, and I'll throw this at you too. My mother said, "Oh, I come out horrible in pictures." I'm going to show you a picture of my mother. May I? Back
Yes, please, please. Beautiful. Oh, wow. Just beautiful. Just
Is she
naturally
gorgeous?
glowing. Yeah.
Is
Oh,
she gorgeous? Look at her.
wow.
Now,
Wow.
I was 5 in that picture, which would have made my mother 23, I think.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Is she gorgeous?
Yes. Oh,
So
and she didn't see that. Mm.
this is also, Reggie, where the idea of self-esteem came to me.
Mm.
because I'm gone. First of all, my mother was beautiful, didn't think she was. She was smart as hell, didn't think she was. She
Mm,
got into a relationship with a man that was very violent. Her father never backed her up. She
mm.
became, because of the social construct, Catholic, the whole thing, became the black sheep, all the things and that kept beating her down, notwithstanding how beautiful and intelligent she was. And so that broke my heart for her.
Yeah.
My grandmother, beautiful lady, beautiful. One day she's in her 50s and she decides she needs to lose weight. She's as thin as a rail, but okay, we'll go down that path another day. She takes 2 diet pills, swallows them, chokes on them, perforates her esophagus, and is in the hospital for 6
Oh,
weeks.
wow.
So I'm looking at these women in my life, the women that are supposed to be forming me, and they do, they're forming me, and I love them to death. But I'm looking at them going, I'm looking at you too, like you are walking on God's green earth with a crown on your head,
Mm,
like you girls to me are everything.
mm.
And as a 5-year-old girl, as a 6-year-old girl, I look at them, I emulate them, I want to be like them. And they didn't have the same perception of themselves that I did. And
Yeah.
that's where it all started.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
been saying that I wanted to write the Self-Esteem Regime for years, and finally now it's 4 years that it's been out, and I have to say, it's been in Barnes& and Noble for those 4 years, Reggie. And I go into Barnes& and Noble all over the United States, and
Yes.
I look at I swear to you, I pinch my butt so many times I got a bruise. I mean, it was like I kept pinching myself. I'm like, "Wait a minute, hold on. Where's my shelf? Oh, there's my shelf." Brené Brown, that's when I
Yeah,
opened.
let's go. Yeah.
That's Brené Brown, Clarissa Burt, Dr. Deepak Chopra,
Wow.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, all
Wow.
on the same damn shelf. And
Wow.
I about fainted. I think my knees buckled. I asked for some smelling salts. Like, I couldn't believe,
That
couldn't
is
believe that
amazing.
my first book, and by the way, thanks to Gary Krebs, who's my editor. He's also my agent. Really did an amazing job. And it was COVID. We got a New York City published book, my
Yeah.
first book. So
Congrats. Oh,
you
that's so
know that,
amazing.
the divine had its hand in this because the
Mhm.
message is important.
Yeah.
Message is so important because without self-esteem, if you don't have that intact by the time your feet hit the ground in the morning, you're not going to have a great relationship with yourself and those around you.
Right.
So it's all right there. It's
I
all
love
right.
what you said, the relationship with yourself and those around you, because
Right.
how we view ourselves is
Right.
gonna reflect in
It's
how we treat other
all it
people.
is. It's
And
that simple.
oh,
It's us that complicates things. We complicate our lives. We want to, we want to take the negative and sort of, and then we resonate with that, and it
mhm,
just it grows and it festers, right?
mhm.
And so that's one of the things that I think is a really important takeaway from all of this
Yes.
is
So
that, let it go. You got to let stuff go. You got to let that stuff go.
wow, yeah. So it's a step-by-step program, the book, right? To
Yeah.
to building confidence and self-esteem. Can you
Yeah.
give us a little preview of what's in the book and what people could
Absolutely
get
will.
from it?
So, first of all, there are 4 pillars of self-esteem, which are look good, feel good, be good, and greater good. Look good, we know what that means. You look in the mirror, you feel in yourself. That's great. Great start. Is that everything that self-esteem is? No, but you know that you've got a lilt in your step when you've taken pride in the way you look and the way you care
Mhm,
about yourself, your
mhm,
self-care. Look good, feel good, diet, exercise, nutrition, wellness. Right.
mhm.
So strengthening, the let's say you have the 2 brains, right? The one in your head and the one in your heart and your gut. And that's just making sure that you've got a healthy body going on.
Mm,
That's it. Be good. Everything you think, your business, your finances, your relationships, all the things that are under the be good process. And then greater good is tithing, volunteering, paying it forward, doing the right thing, right?
bigger than you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So all the things that, you as you pull them together, so those are the 4 pillars of self-esteem
Hmm.
that as I see them.
Mhm.
The 12 chapters in the book, and first of all, the book is called The Self-Esteem Regime. I'll show it
Mhm.
to you in a second. And regime is an organized way of doing things. So what I wanted to do is you're not going to read about self-esteem with this book. You're going to do self-esteem. So it's really
Yeah.
more of a manual, if you will.
I like it. It's practical.
Practical. It's 12 chapters. It starts with release and ends with what does it end with? Reciprocal.
Mm.
And so each chapter lives its own little microcosm, and you can stay there as long as you need. So release is one of the biggest jobs we need to do.
Yeah.
Is like get rid of all the old, shed all the stuff. Forget some of the things that were hammered into your head. Things that aren't working for you aren't working for you.
Yeah.
We want to thank our parents. They did the best that they knew how. Whether you come from a great background or a not so great background, that doesn't happen by mistake. There's a
Mm-hmm.
reason, right? And
Mm.
so that's one of the things that I wanted to always kind of, it hurt along the way. Don't get me wrong, until I figured this whole thing out. But it's one of the things that I really want to bring attention to and kind of glorify, if you will, because you were given to whom you were supposed to be given to, so that you could have the path that you're supposed to have in
Mm.
order to become who you're supposed to become, so that you can affect others in a very positive way. If you're
Wow.
doing it right, that's kind of the path, right? We all know that that's kind of the way it
When
is. So
when
for
you
me,
hear it put like that, it gives you a sense of pride from where you
yeah,
come from because it builds
absolutely.
you into who you are.
Because my motto is the toxic stops here. Right.
Mm.
The toxic, because we all know, right? We've got the familial tribe. We know what they were taught, and then before them, and the generation before that. And so it keeps getting passed on until somebody says, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't working.
Yeah. You
We got to
gotta
fix
break
this.
that
We
cycle.
got to fix this. Something ain't right." And so the self-esteem for me personally, it's a manual, so to work,
Mhm.
but it's also a mission, and I want to make it a movement. It's a movement of, again, making it your sacred duty, as I said before, to be the best person you can be. Another mantra that I use is I want to be a better person tomorrow than I am today. I don't
Mhm.
want to compare myself to anyone else except for the person that I was yesterday.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. There's
Yeah.
nothing more to it's again, the concept is so simple. The work, however,
Yeah.
can be a little challenging,
That's
right?
the
So
challenge.
you're
Yeah.
going to get into this book and you're going to start to read and we've got case studies, we've got Clarissa's Corner, we've got oh gosh, what else do we got in here? All kinds of stuff. I can't even remember myself. We got quotes, we've got a homework, we've got the whole,
I
like
love it.
manual
I love
part of all
that.
this. The
Yes.
second the second chapter is rebuild. So once you feel that you've gotten past release, okay, I think I'm good and I'm good there. Let me go back now. Let's rebuild. Let me build the life that I want to build. That's going to work for me, right?
Mm.
And you got to understand in all of this is you're going to need some courage, uh,
Mhm.
and because people are going to start falling away. People are going to get their nose out of joint. People might be offended. People are going to question you. People are going to think you've lost your mind. Like it might get uncomfortable, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say at times. So work yourself through the discomfort. If you need to explain yourself, that's fine. If people understand your explanation, great. If they
Yeah.
don't, that's okay. Keep on your path. As long as you're not
Mhm.
hurting anybody.
Yeah.
And you're just you're moving forward in where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And sometimes you may hurt somebody indirectly, but that's not
There
your
you go.
responsibility
Absolutely.
to caretake for their feelings of what you've done and chosen
Right.
with your
Oh,
life.
and by the way, 2 of the biggest words you and others or 3 potentially, "I am sorry." No
Mhm.
problem. I mean, I think that's the greatest thing, you could ever utter. If it's true, you mean it, and the case calls for an apology. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
apologize all day long, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no shame in an apology.
Yeah, that's so true. No, I love that, and this is coming from a woman who has been knighted.
Ah,
What was that experience like?
it was really
And
cool.
yeah, leading up to that and then
Yeah.
experiencing that and knowing that, like, this is something that very
Well,
few people in the world ever get to experience.
it
Tell
was
us what
if
that
it's
even means.
okay. There are many royal orders in the world, okay? There are many different, they go back for centuries and centuries and centuries, especially in Europe, most likely in Europe, because really we don't have them here. And so I was nominated to knighthood 3 years ago, summers ago, I think it was
Mm.
4 summers ago, 4, I think it was. And it's the Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen and of Cappadocia, which is in Turkey, which goes all the way
Mhm.
back to the Byzantine era. And the prince was puts on events, and people are nominated to be at these events to be knighted. So he flew in from Spain. We were in Vegas. There were 12 of us, I think, 12 of us. They got not knighted. That it was summer about 4 years ago,
Mhm.
and it's lovely and it's a great honor, and and that's it. Really, it's a great honor. It doesn't change me in any way. It doesn't really change things in any way. It's a title, and it's an honor. Let's just
Yeah.
put it that way.
Does it give you like secret access to places that I can't get into?
Yeah, it's nothing like that, but it's pretty amazing thing, I must say. It was very fun.
Yeah, well, no, it's well deserved, and I think that it's beautiful that you've had such vast experience in your life. I'm curious with your modeling career, and you mentioned being in so many magazines and so many covers, and now being on the shelves. Has there ever been a period where you felt your own self image or self esteem being altered in a negative way, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, because again, this is one of those kind of things that life will trigger, life will throw stuff at you. Life ebbs and flows, and it depends on I mean, relationships, um, separations. These are the kinds of things. It's divorces that can really trigger you. Being betrayed, can trigger you. And so definitely, I mean, I believe I'm very empathic. So emotionally, I take a lot of stuff in from others, and I
Mhm,
hold on to some of that sometimes, and it really
mhm,
can be painful. So when we talk about depression, we talk about anxiety. I went through that for a lot of years. So people say, well, why did you write the book? Well, because I come from life experience, and I know what this means. I know what this kind of pain is. So, it's one of those kind of things that when I was talking about standing strong in your stead, right? Here comes the storm, because it's coming. We all know life is life. It's just
mhm.
what life does. Here comes a storm, here comes a hurricane, here comes that tornado. But if you've done the work and you have the tools in the shed that you need on any given day, once that storm starts to pass through, just like a well-rooted tree, if the storm is coming, you might lose a leaf. Maybe you're
Mhm.
gonna lose a branch, right? But you're not gonna be uprooted with the storm and be, transported away. And that's where the work in the book comes in, or any book. I just say, there was a time back in the day where we had 3 bookstores, okay? Walden
Mhm.
Books, Borden Books, Border Books, and, Barnes& and Noble.
Mhm.
Again, no internet. We didn't have the computer, so we had bookstores. In the very back, Reggie, there was a section called self-help. And on in that section, there might have been 40 or 50 books, and that was it. That's all we had.
Wow.
That's all we
Wow.
had. That's all we had, and I read every one of them.
Mm.
Because that was my go-to. It's where I got help, assistance, guidance, support, a way out, if you will, an explanation
Mhm.
for things. And so now, when you walk into Barnes and Noble, right, it's rows upon rows upon rows upon rows of what they call now the personal development section,
Yeah.
and it's a $1 billion industry,
Yes.
$1 billion industry, not just here in the States, but globally.
Yeah.
Thank God, because
Definitely.
people are in pain, and this is the way out.
Mm.
Is your personal development, is your forgiving others, is understanding that it didn't start with you. There's another great, really great book. I think his name
I
is
love
Mark
that book.
Mark
Mark
Wallen.
Wallen.
Mark
Yeah.
Wallen.
Yeah.
It didn't start with you. Oh, hello. Because
Mhm.
you can really question yourself. You can start to go down a really dark rabbit hole about how horrible you are as a person, and it's nothing like that at all.
Yeah.
And
It's yeah.
so, you
So
really, that's
true.
why I say it's your sacred duty to yourself to do the work, to get the book, to read the book, to do the exercises, to
Mm.
remind yourself, to catch yourself, right? And right a wrong, say I'm sorry, do whatever you need to do. But at the same time, being strong enough to know what the difference is between being saying I'm sorry and knowing you're being treated poorly,
Yeah. That's
that you're in
huge.
a toxic
That's
relationship. So
huge.
be very careful with that, right?
Yes.
So when you're in here's a toxic relationship. Um, um, when it comes down to somebody saying, "Oh, you saying, geez, can I talk to you for a second? Because what you just said, it kind of hit me in a way. Can we talk about that a second? Because I'd like to explain." Oh, come on, get over yourself. What the hell? I was just kidding. You're in a toxic relationship.
Gaslight.
Good God,
Yeah.
good God Almighty! What the hell? It's not that big of a deal. Get over yourself,
Yeah. The
right?
invalidating
Right.
responses.
There you go. If
Mhm.
somebody says to you, "Oh my gosh, yes, of course." Oh, well, listen. First of all, didn't mean it that way. I was just kidding. I was joking. Didn't know. Never do it again. Thanks for letting me know. We're good. We're good. We're good.
Mhm.
Great. That
Mhm.
those are the kind of people you need to
Yeah.
keep.
Yeah. And that action has to back up those words,
Yeah.
because if they say that and then they do it again, then it's
Well,
like, then you have to reevaluate. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Who does your mission and message help? Is it just women, or is it more broadly than that?
now, see, you saw the cover of my book when I first got it. You see the triangles. When I first got it back, it was pink, yellow, and orange.
Mm,
It was pretty, and it would have jumped off. We would have really seen it jump off the shelves. But the one thing that I asked Gary to do is to call the publisher, which you're not supposed to do. And I said, "Can you do me a favor? Can you make the triangles 3 iterations of blue? Because
mhm.
if I would love for men to pick up this book too." When I dropped the book in Italy 3 years ago, and I was going around the country, and I was in the room, and half of the room were men. If I had 100 people in the room, half of them were men, and it was great to see. Right now, one of the largest group of people that my generation says committing suicide, your generation says that are unaliving themselves, are men.
Mm,
Men. Veterans for sure, but men. And kids, a lot of kids, right?
yeah,
So we've got there's a lot of work to be done. It's on us to keep our ears to the ground and our nose to the grind when it comes to if we see kids in pain. If we see a man, and men usually won't talk. I'm a
right.
woman and I sit next to somebody on the plane from LA to New York, and I'm sitting next to another woman. I'm going to know her entire life story by the time we are going to know everything about one another. Men don't do that.
No. Yeah.
Guys don't do that. Guys can say, "Hey, man, are you in pain? Can I do anything for you? You want to talk about it?" Guys don't
I'm
do that.
good.
Not
I'm
manly,
good.
right?
Yeah.
And so what I really, keep trying to underline and impress upon guys is, if you see somebody's kind of not doing good, get with them, take them under arm, say, "Dude, what's going on?"
Yes.
That's
Yes.
all it takes sometimes. "Dude, what's going on?"
That is one of the biggest reasons I started this podcast, was because in my personal life, I
Mhm.
had created one, I was vulnerable myself, and then that gave people permission to be vulnerable with me, and there was
Right?
safety there. And I
Yep.
was having many conversations with men that I was like, this is beautiful modeling
It
for
is.
what manhood looks like, and what how we get to a place of healing where we're not dying by suicide, where we're not holding
Yeah.
on to trauma for the rest of our lives and taking it to the grave. And so that was a big mission for me, was to help men recognize that vulnerability can be their strength, can be a
Well,
power.
it's also put on men that they are the leaders. They're leaders, and they're leaders of the
Mhm.
family, right? They are the ones that, and they are a lot of, religions teach this as well. And I think that men, they there was a time where there was a time generationally, and I'm going to go back like 60s and 70s,
Okay.
where your mother was from the old country, let's
Mhm.
say, but like my mother, or the story I told you about my mom. And then there was the women's rights movement of the 60s, and now all of a sudden, women were completely different. Like,
Yeah.
they were talking different, dressing different, acting different, being different. The pill came out. It was free love, and everybody was make love, not war. And you're looking at your mother, and then you're looking at this girl, and there was a gap that nobody prepared you for, and you didn't. I think for men, and I'm only speaking to men, and they could tell me if I'm right or wrong, but nobody taught them how to juggle this. Like,
Mm,
this is what I was
interesting.
taught.
Interesting.
This is what my mother and my father taught me. And this is what now this girl is telling me that women in society want.
Mm,
How can where do I sew this together? Like, I think
yeah.
guys have a really hard time
Wow.
with the transition.
Yeah.
And and so we could be down that path, all day.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
I
yeah,
think that's really good insight, because it happens so quickly, and
yeah,
there's adjustments and reflections that need to be had to reconcile those
yeah.
two differences in the mind.
Right, right.
I'm curious. So you knew viral before virality and social media and all of that. You were all over the place. You were in magazines. You were all, and so, but today, with the phone in hand and you post a picture, it could be seen by
Yeah,
millions. And that has warped the minds of so many people, right? There people are basing their self-worth off of how many clicks or how many likes that they get.
yeah.
What do you see in terms of where our world is going with that new technology
Yeah.
and compared to the time that you grew up?
Well, I think it's really important to be, well, yeah, exactly. You have to be really, really mindful about social media and what is real and what's not real.
Mm.
And there are a couple of things that I say. First of all, a couple of years ago, it was the Attorney General at the time. His name was Anand Murthy was his last name. And he came out and said, we really have to be doing more about these filters, right, on
Mm.
social media because these girls that are, 8, 9, 10 years old, the only thing they want to be is sexy, right? And so, um, with social media, then there was all the stuff that went on with Senate, and they were all trying to change things around. But with social media, you have to understand what is real and what's not, right? I use the explanations is you want to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Mhm.
And so there are two ways to approach that, right? One is the grass is always greener on the other side, right? But is it really grass or is it astroturf?
Mhm.
And then the other thing about that grass is the grass is always greener where you water it.
Mm.
And so come back home, take care of your thing, take care of your own, take care of what is. Be really mindful about what is fake and what is real.
Mhm.
Dove self-esteem has Dove, the soaps, and
Mhm.
they have something called Dove Self-Esteem Project, and they've been doing this for years, and they do an amazing job. And what they did a couple of years ago was they come out with so hashtag no filter and
Mhm.
turn your back on the filters because these filters, I think the one that was really called into question was called the glamour filter, I think it was.
Okay.
And so the idea that, you can be projecting yourself out into the world is one thing because you don't feel like you're good enough to be what you truly are.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to tell you that if I had come to this conversation, a couple of hours ago without, preparing myself, I was still in my BVDs. Do you know what that is? My
No.
BVDs? Okay.
No. What is that?
It used to be men's underwear. It was I love my BVDs or something. It was like in the 70s and it was like a commercial for men's underwear. And I
Okay.
was still like in my flannels and my t-shirt and I didn't have all of it on. I'm not going to show up that way, but I mean, I put on just enough to still be me. Well, these
Mm.
filters are completely changing,
Mhm.
these kids. And so not good. It's not good for their mental health.
No.
It's not good for their self-esteem, so it's lack of self-esteem wanting to be something you're not, and portraying yourself as something you're not. And then the other thing that's really horrible is happening on social media is the bullying that these kids are
Yeah.
going through. And so, there's a lot of unaliving going on because kids can't stand up to the pressure.
Mm.
And, the meanness, mean girls and, I guess the bullies have always existed. I mean, I don't think that's anything new under the sun. But, the ones that are the meanest are the ones that have the least self-esteem.
Yeah. It's true. It's
So,
true.
let's work on that. I think it's really important to drive that home. I was never a part of a clique. I was never a part of the group. I wasn't never a part of the cool girls. I was never a part of any of that. But there was a certain part of me that was kind of happy I wasn't. I was
Mm.
so thrilled to be independent on my own and not hanging out with a group. I had to be on my own. I couldn't be around it. It was just too
Yeah.
much for me. I think they go back to my ADHD potentially, but
Yeah.
it just kind of worked for me. Yeah, I was friendly with them and I said hello and all the things, but I wasn't at the parties every weekend. I didn't drink. I was never the girl that did back in high school, so I wasn't popular at
Yeah.
all in that sense, but that's okay. I caught
Is
up. I
Yeah.
caught up.
Do you have any tips for parents or adults that are around children? Maybe it's teachers, maybe it's somebody
Yeah,
else in their life
yeah,
who are seeing the impact of that on their kid, on that of their loved one,
yeah.
from a self esteem perspective, and how to combat some of that. Are there boundaries to set? Are there tips or best
Absolutely.
practices?
I think it starts at home. I think it starts at the kitchen table. I think it starts with the time that you spend, because I think parents look, I'm not a parent, so I'm not talking up or down or around. I'm just coming up with what I think I would do if I were a parent. And that is, you get home from school, you get home from work, everybody's in the kitchen. You lay the table, I'll chop the celery, get out the milk, you get out like, and we all do this a little bit, think, get together, just be together as a family. Because basically, by the time you start to cook the dinner, the time you're done eating it, it's an hour of your day. And then everybody
Mhm.
goes back to where they were. But at least you've connected, you talked about what's going on, and you can start, I know kids are really difficult, especially when they're teenagers. How was your day? Good. How was school? Good.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get information out of these kids, but I think that, that has to be everybody, that all the devices are put up. Nobody can have a device for that amount of time. And I think that as the younger kids, as you're introducing these devices to them, you introduce it for a certain amount of hours a day, and then, and you make it them understand that this is not your device. This is my device. I bought it. I pay for it. You get the privilege of using it. If
Mm.
you're not coming home with the right schoolwork, if you're acting up, and so all so to use a little bit of as a leverage point, much as though maybe my parents would have done with my allowance or something.
Mhm.
So I think that's just kind of a way to say, and I know these kids now, they use the iPads in school and all that for their
Right.
homework, but that's kind of where it needs to end. And
Yeah.
I think they just need to be, I just think they need to be, it needs to be understood that they're loved and they're cared for, and somebody's, disciplining them, because I think discipline is one of those things that we have. I think, what was it that I had come up with once? You can either do a little less coddling and more cuddling.
Mm.
So in other
Mhm.
words, stop coddling these kids.
Mm.
I mean, which means to be treating them in an indulgent or an overprotective way
Mhm.
when you're coddling.
Yeah.
Let's do more cuddling.
Yeah. I
Right?
like it.
When you're coddling these kids, you're making it okay, you're making it, life is not easy. You cannot
Right.
teach them easy,
Right.
from day one, because it's not that way, and
Right.
so there's gonna be this, like, major shock once they walk out of the door at 18.
Mhm.
So there's gotta be more, I think, more preparatory work from home, and definitely more discipline.
Yeah, I agree. And I love what you said earlier about recognizing what's real and what's not real.
Yeah,
My sister was in high school at the time, and she was showing me, like, she's like, one of another student at school, she has these tens of thousands of followers. She's a high schooler. But I look at her page and her body is all over the internet as a high schooler. And I know these people don't know that and like you said, filters are slapped on there and all of this. And
yeah,
so to reorient that young brain who really at a
yeah,
developmental stage can't
yeah,
really decipher what's real, what's not real, reiterating and reinforcing what is real, what's not, and was truly expected. Because
yeah,
some people think they post this and it's supposed to go viral. They sit there, they watch their phone, they get 3 likes, and they want to kill themselves. And
exactly.
it's like that's not a real expectation either. It's like the amount of work, the amount of psychology, the amount of all the tips
Absolutely.
and tricks that go into an algorithm.
Mhm.
It's you have little control over a lot of those
Yeah,
things.
that means you're basically putting your life in somebody else's hands, number 1,
Yeah,
'cause you don't know.
and
And
yeah.
number 2, you're using your body as leverage, and I think that
Mhm.
that's one of the things that young ladies really not ladies, which is something, we have is another word that's kinda gone by the wayside, but, ladies don't act that way. And
Mm,
the guys you're gonna get all the attention from the guys, but they're not gonna take you home to their mother.
mm, mm,
You're not the girl they're gonna marry.
mm.
And so it's a lack of self-esteem. I go
Yeah,
back to that all the
yeah,
time. It's
yeah,
lack of self-esteem.
yeah, I
When
love
you're
it.
the girl that doesn't, I was the girl that didn't in high school, and I'm telling you, I had people, make fun of me, I was like, it wasn't a thing. I wasn't ready. It wasn't, it'll happen in my own time, you
Yeah,
know? And my
definitely.
own time is divine timing. It's okay,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
I'm curious, have you had any experiences with readers of your book who come up to you and are just like, "Thank you."
Yeah, it actually happened in, one of the book signings that I was doing, and I get a couple of email every once in a while. I come in and say, "Wow, it's really great. Thank you." So I've gotten great reviews on Amazon, which was really amazing too. It's
Mhm,
really cool to be putting out a book like this that, again, is, it's really kinda like my life's work, because, again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I am not a college-educated woman. I've done a lot of things, and I've garnered an awful lot of, in the way of life experience, and it's put into this book.
mm,
And yeah, it's an amazing thing when somebody says, "Hey, this is really great. Thank you."
yeah.
I love it. It's just great. It's really great. It's my baby.
Yeah, I love that, I love that. We could talk for days, but before we close out, I have a segment, it's just fill in the blank, okay? So you let me know the first thing that you think of,
Okay.
but Vulnerability makes me feel blank.
Uncertain.
Ooh.
Makes me feel uncertain. Again, and then it goes back to great, stop, pause. What's really going on? That's what, when you start to do this work that I told you before, you start to understand the patterns. It's not just happenstance. It's not just like, hold up, take a deep breath, pull it, reel it in.
Mhm.
What's really going on? What are you
Mhm.
really feeling? Okay. And how much leeway are you going to give yourself? If you need a little bit of downtime, that's okay. You can take this much downtime, but we're not going to take a whole, give yourself a little bit of leeway, but get back up on the horse.
Mm.
And that's another one of the things that, um, can be really kind of a scary moment is when you start to like let it go, no, give yourself the time you need, and then get back up on the horse. A lot of this is just again doing the work, going back and doing the work if you need it, because my book is the kind of book you can read now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, and it's all gonna be different, right?
Mhm.
Because what you may read, the book right now and not capture the essence of something, right? But
Yeah.
in 6 months' time, you read it again and say, "Hey, I don't remember that being in that book 6 months ago. Wait a minute,
Yeah.
I didn't see that." You weren't ready for the message yet,
Yeah.
right? You weren't ready for it. And so vulnerability is one of those kind of things that gives you it's that moment of it's happening because you need a moment of pause.
I like that.
And give yourself the time you need, the self-care that you need. Take the bath, you get your nails done, whatever it is you gotta do. Go play basketball, whatever that is. But then come back to reality and say, "Okay, now I get it. It's scary, but I think I know where I need to go now."
Mhm. Yeah.
And then implement.
Definitely. Definitely. I love that. My biggest strength is blank.
My biggest strength is vulnerability. No. My biggest strength, is I'm very, is I think is my caregiving self.
Mm.
My biggest strength is my caregiving self. My biggest strength is not wanting to see anyone else in difficulty and not wanting to see anyone else in pain.
Mhm.
My my biggest strength is wanting, no matter if I will see somebody, telling a woman in the supermarket, well, how lovely the top is that she has. Oh, I love that top. I'll never see her again. But
Mhm.
it was again that win-win moment. It made me feel good to say it. It made her feel good. Oh, thank you. I got it at Kohl's. I'll never see her again. But just doing nice things and saying nice things. I'm not like this all the time. I'm no damn saint, but just trying to be a better person tomorrow than I am today. And how am I going to do that? How can you do that every day? Sometimes it's just something as simple as doing that. A nice compliment left with someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. If I could tell a woman dealing with self-image issues or self-esteem issues, it would be blank.
It would be, you're not who they tell you you are. It would be you're not who the media tells you you are. It's not who it is, social media pretends that you are. It is the essence of who you truly are, and go live that. Don't be afraid. Big word, afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Be courageous.
Mm.
And live it loud, live it loud, just go be you. Because you know what? The divine, and again, I use the word divine because some people say God, some people say Krishna, some people say Buddha, some people, the source, whatever it is. They are so much bigger, better, bolder, and brighter, right, than we are. Whoever that divine is, they know exactly what they were doing when they made you. It's not up to you to to be
Yeah.
questioning all that. It's
Yeah.
like, you were put here for a reason. There are billions of people on this planet. You're the only one that gets to be you, you lucky dog.
Yeah. I
What the
love
heck are
that.
we talking about? Like, what are
Yes.
we talking about? Just be you. Don't
Mm.
worry about what everybody else is saying, because what everybody else is saying, as you've heard before, Reggie, it's none of your damn business.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Ah, yes.
Business.
So good. So good. Uh, I got 2 more. I
Okay.
need help with blank.
I need help with um, procrastination.
Mm.
I need help with sometimes I need help with yeah, I'm going to go with procrastination. Because I'm at a stage in my life now where I really should kind of be thinking about retiring, and I'm not. But things have, evolved and changed. And so as you move on, I mean, I've been many different things in my lifetime, as you have said before. Like I started out as a waitress, and I was a secretary. I told you about New York, and then I was a model, then I was an actress, then I was a producer, then I was a director. All the things that I wanted to be. And now I really want to start events for women and
Mm.
men too, but events or retreats so that we can come in, that we can go through the book and we can do the look good, feel good, be good, and greater good theory
Yeah.
in a 5-day period of time. It's going to be really intensive, but it's going to give you a whole new way of taking a look at yourself and taking a look at how you're going to front life once you walk out those doors.
Yeah. The world needs that. And
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I think it really does. I think you're really right. We've got a lot of women's events that are bitch in heels and bitch on wheels and corporate bitch. Okay, all right, hold up one second, hold on. All right, okay. And, and then we got on the other side, we've got woo woo and zen and crystals, and I love them all. Don't get me wrong, I love both of them.
Yeah.
I want to do something in the middle. I want to merge the two
Okay.
and have it be,
A bitch with
look,
crystals.
we're not here to play. We're not here to play, right? We're gonna get stuff done,
Yes.
but we're going to do it with lots of love and
Yes.
crystals
Yes. I
and
love that.
essential oils and diffusers and all like the way I see my event, right?
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
And give these women not only the community of other women, like-minded women, which is phenomenal because I love to connect people. That's one of
Mhm.
my greatest strengths. Let's go back. I'm a
Yeah.
great connector.
Yeah.
But just to be able to, women, especially at this age, let's say empty nesters, but baby boomers, separated, divorced. What's next?
Yeah.
Do I work? Are they not working? Your body's changing. Your, wrinkles are showing. All the things, right? And just giving them the power and the strength to know that you're in your. I mean, I'm 60 years, 66 in 2 weeks. I really feel like I'm still in my prime. I didn't start
Mm.
in the limelight until I was 60.
Mm.
My
Wow.
my media business.
Yeah.
So the book didn't come out until I was 61, 62.
Wow. Yes. That's inspiring.
Come on, damn it.
So inspiring.
I mean,
Mhm.
Reggie, what? I'm not ready to be put out to pasture. I don't like eating grass.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Oh. Oh, man. I got one more. When I need inspiration, I turn to blank.
I turn to YouTube. I turn to motivational and inspirational videos. I will listen to Dr. Lipton. I will listen to Joe Dispenza. I will listen sometimes Mel Robbins. Brené Brown. I will go to the go tos that are the OGs of personal development,
Yes,
which
I love
is,
that.
yeah, I would go to the OGs of personal development. I've got a
Yes.
hundred book. If I show you my couch, I got 100 books on that couch, and
Yeah.
they're all about that shadow work, love of affirmation, like all the thing. I'm constantly filling my brain with positivity. Right.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean I don't have down days. It doesn't mean I don't have, depressed moments, because we're human and things happen. As I said before, the life triggering events,
Mhm.
but I'm very mindful about and you'll get them in my book as well. I mean, this thing it's like so chock full. It's so damn full of stuff. This book, I mean, it's crazy. Did you read the acknowledgments?
No.
I'm going to read this real quick and then we'll go. I'd like to acknowledge the millions of people all over the world who have been abandoned, abused, beaten, hit, struck, oppressed, depressed, distressed, held back, lied to, cheated on, lost, betrayed, deceived, misled, double crossed, walked out on, stabbed in the back, sold down the river, stolen from, deserted, discarded, shunned, cast out, dropped, dumped, forgotten, neglected, rejected, and or dejected. You're the sole reason I've written this book. So if that's not everybody on the planet, I don't know who is, right?
Wow.
And so when you say to me, who's this book written for? Well, you tell me. I can speak to a 14-year-old girl about self esteem. I can talk to an 82-year-old man about self esteem. I can speak to a woman who's just had a mastectomy about self esteem. I can speak to a war veteran about self esteem. And they will be all different conversations. But at
That's
the
amazing.
core, it's all about the love of self. That's all it
Mm,
is.
I
And
love
where do
that.
we start? We start with happy, healthy self-esteem because sometimes in life it's not given to us, it's not passed on to us, it is not taught to us. We don't even know what the hell it is sometimes.
Mhm.
So
That's
that's
so good. And
yeah.
they can turn to your book, they can turn to your lessons and learnings and teachings
Yeah,
and all of that. Like
yeah,
you've put a great gift out here into the world, and you are a great gift to the world.
Reggie.
I'm so thankful for this opportunity to connect with you. How
Thank
can
you.
other people connect with you? How can they buy your book? How can they learn more about the work
Yeah,
that you do?
cool. Well, the book is on it's on Amazon. Definitely. We've got Kindle, Audible, and the book is on Amazon. The book is in the Barnes and Noble stores. So the self-esteem regime, really easy to remember. Again, regime being an organized way of doing things. And this is a really good manual. It's a great place to start. You're not going to read about self-esteem, you're going to do self-esteem.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Clarissa. This has been
Oh,
absolutely fantastic
thank
with
you.
all the things that you could be doing and all the places you could
Oh, I
be.
love this. Are you
I
kidding me?
appreciate you being here with me, embracing
Woo,
vulnerability.
I love talking. You just bring me back.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of Vulnerability Muscle. If you've enjoyed these conversations around vulnerability, please consider leaving a review. Your feedback not only motivates us to continue to do the work that we do, but it allows other people to witness the power of vulnerability. Share your thoughts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you're listening from. And don't forget to spread the word. You can follow us at Vulnerability Muscle on Instagram and me personally at Reggie D Ford across all platforms. Visit vulnerabilitymuscle.com for additional resources and support. And remember, embracing vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is the source of your greatest strength. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but most workouts are. So keep flexing that vulnerability muscle.